We knew there was something fishy, but the extent of the rot exposed in the PMC scam, yes, it's a scam, is just shocking. In an FIR filed by the Economic Offences Wing, it now emerges that the management bank officials of the Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank were in active collusion to hide and cover up the vast loans being extended to bankrupt real estate company HDIL. Both bank officials and HDIL have been booked. Before this, alarming details emerged about how 6,500 crore rupees had been lent to HDIL, that is more than 70% of all the bank's assets. Now a couple of questions emerge. So, in light of what we now know, were PMC's reported financial results, which showed a 100 crore rupee profit, a work of complete fiction? Is this simply a case of depositors' money being siphoned off to one company? Was the management working in collusion with HDIL to siphon off these loans? Now the important thing, PMC chairman was on HDIL board as well for the longest time. Wasn't that a conflict of interest, and was that overlooked? And can the regulator, that is RBI, be let off the hook for not detecting a fraud that seems like it was building over years? The last count we have is that this is on since 2008. To speak more on this and other angles of the story that we're tracking consistently here on the India Development Debate, I'm joined now by Hemendra Hazari, banking expert, Maithili Bhusnamat, consulting editor at ET Now, Tamal Bandyopadhyay, senior journalist, and Sundar Balakrishnan, who's a beleaguered customer of the PMC Bank. Mr. Balakrishnan, let me begin by asking you what you want to say today before we get into analyzing what could have happened at this institution. What is the contagion? What does it tell us about our banking system? What are you thinking right now?
See, madam, if you ask me, this particular PMC bank has, defaulting over a period of years, I think 6 to 7 years, I think so. But the regulator was, I think they were in connivance with the PMC bank. The reason why I am saying is because the Reserve Bank also had 105 crores of deposits from their officers society, RBI officers society. Probably they may be thinking that, if they declare this an NPA, their whole money will go off. So they were trying to, looks like they were trying to, avoid declaring it as an NPA. And another thing what I feel is, the declaration of the first PMC said, saying that there is no issue at all the loans are totally clean, there is no issue at all. RBI took a hasty decision. Then after 2-3 days came the story of HDIL. Then the amount of 2,500 crores came. Then about 2 days ago, the amount jumped up to 6,500 crores. Problem is somewhere somebody is hiding the whole story, We don't know what the reality is. Even today, we don't know who is the actual person who is responsible over this. RBI has still not made any statement on this issue. Governor has not come out. Even the government has not made any statement about the whole
the government, the MOS Finance has come out and said time and again that they are trying to look into it. Mr. Balakrishnan, I just want to understand. I just want to understand what you are going through. Tell us your story, and how hopeful you are feeling today that this will be sorted out and you will eventually get your money.
See, initially with the promises given by PMC Bank, we were a bit hopeful. But later on, when we heard that exposure is about this 6,500 crores from the 8,400 crores of total outstanding, I think there is a very remote chance that we will get. And people like us, we are retired, we live on interest, and all our savings are in the bank. And if you can just think of all those senior citizens whose total retirement funds are put in the bank, what will they do? Today, there is no distinction between a normal citizen and a senior citizen as far as PMC Bank is concerned. Everybody is treated the same. My point is, at least let a senior citizen be given some kind of a benefit. Then you come to this particular, withdrawal of from 1,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
You go there, so much of a rush. There is no people to handle you properly. And 10,000, how is it going to be enough for us to sustain for 6 months? We cannot sustain with 10,000 rupees. It is so difficult. People should understand. They should increase the amount, and in fact the government should allow the bank to perform in the normal way and let the things go on. If they can revive 23 banks when this government took over, why can't they infuse certain amounts immediately and let the bank be run in the normal way?
Yes, Mr. Balakrishnan, I want to come to a very important point that you have raised, and that is actually the crux of it. It is the most important question, that after the revelations that have come to light in the last couple of days, has the hope of recovery lessened, or should depositors know that their money will be restored to them maybe later rather than sooner? I'm going to come to Maithili first for a comment on that, because so far it seems scary, but there is still hope that, you know, all of this money will be recovered from somewhere.
Well, yes, it was the MD of the bank, Mr. Thomas, has said that all the loans are fully secured, and he's repeatedly said that he's very confident about that. So if, as he says, the loans are fully secured, then possibly there is a chance of recovering the money. The depositors might have to wait. They may not get the money immediately, and as Mr. Balakrishnan is saying, it is very, very unfortunate for them and very difficult for them. But if the RBI and the bank work together and actually try and see what can be recovered, there is a hope. In fact, this is where I'd say perhaps the RBI has been a little hasty in imposing the moratorium, because had it perhaps put it instead on a prompt corrective action, then maybe there would have been better chances that people would not have panicked like this. I think RBI has heard, because it has spread a great deal of panic, and initially saying 1,000, then promptly raising it to 10,000. So what was the true state of affairs? So I would not agree with Mr. Balakrishnan that RBI has colluded, but certainly there does seem to be some signs of negligence. Connivance, I think, is too far. Collusion, etc., I would not buy that argument at all. But certainly the RBI has fallen short of doing its job as a watchdog.
Well, fallen short for sure. There was another very interesting report today which talked about how the priority sector lending portfolio of PMC had dropped consistently over time, and that could have been one big red flag. Tamal, Maithili says and quotes what Joy Thomas has been saying, but what Mr. Joy Thomas has been saying and doing, does it evoke that kind of confidence at this point? On Friday, he was talking about a 2,500 crore rupee exposure. Then a letter of his is quoted which is talking about a 6,500 rupee exposure. Now we have an FIR which is talking about 4,200 crore rupees in losses.
Yeah, I'm afraid I wish I could support, or I could be in the same tune what Maithili is saying. I'm not very hopeful about everybody getting their money back, because it's not that, you know, the money is in a pond or in a locker locked. Money has flown the bank, and violating all the norms, 15% is the norm to a particular entity which you can give it to, and it has now 5 times 75% of the money of 11,000 odd crore has gone to one particular entity. And Maithili says that, or rather Maithili quoted the MD that 3 times cover. I am afraid it's not the thing. He just lied. 3 times cover. I think the bank has been talking about when they were projecting their exposure to HDIL is minuscule. It's not actually the case. My understanding, I am not privy to any information, but whatever little understanding I had, when 2017 RBI got a sense something is wrong, they showed a sort of, you know, a few hundred crore, some 200 or 268 odd crore exposure, and they jacked up to, I think last year 468 crore, something like that. Which, where is 468 crore and where is 6,500 crore? The gentleman first he spoke, he said RBI should have done it NPA. RBI does not do an NPA, the bank needs to do an NPA, and RBI insisted that it should be done an NPA, despite that this bank did not classify it as an NPA.
Absolutely.
So there are violation, and it's a out and out fraud on multiple account. A, the single exposure norm you have broken from 15%, you have taken to 75%. B, you have lied consistently to Reserve Bank of India and to the auditors. And what you did actually, this particular bank, to camouflage that it's such a large exposure, it even rigged its, I am told it rigged its CBS, the entire operating system core banking solution, and created thousands thousands of dummy account to show that look, we don't have 6,500 crore exposure to this particular entity, we have hundreds and thousands crores of exposure to hundreds and thousands of people.
Yeah.
So it actually reminds me of Satyam. You know, the kind of thing, one, if you are hell bent on committing fraud on multiple ways, then it's I mean, it takes time to actually catch you. And apart from that, it also violated the norm of connected lending. The chairman was a part of the company. So if you see, I am afraid I don't see everybody getting back their money. My understanding, up to 10,000 crore which RBI has read, is that it has covered about 64% of the depositors. Now I wish they raise it to little more, maybe a lakh, maybe 1,25,000, maybe around that time. That will cover almost 75% of the depositors.
Yeah.
And how do you generate the money? You can generate the money because you have a 19% SLR, which means about 11,000 crore deposits, out of which 19% is invested in government bonds, which you can liquidate and get the money. Then you have 4% CRR, that much money will be there with you. And then you have some certain assets which 3 times he said is not even maybe 20% cover of the entire thing. So you can sell them. So all these things can probably take care of 75% of the depositors at the lower level, probably up to 1.5 or 1.25 crore or 1.25 lakh. But beyond that, I am afraid, I think the bank will go for liquidation. If I am not, I wish I am no Cassandra, I am not,
right.
no, I wish I am wrong,
Yeah.
but the signs are there. There is not many options left but to send it for liquidation, and there has to be a long wait, how much money you can get back.
No, absolutely. You know, one can hope that with all of the public outrage and pressure, I'm coming to you, Mr. Balakrishnan, I just want all the panelists to have their first word, and then I'll open up the debate. So I'm going to come to Hemendra Hazari. I have with me actually the letter that MD of PMC, Joy Thomas, wrote to the RBI, and it makes for interesting reading, because in this letter he says, as the loans outstanding were huge, and if these were classified as NPA, it would have affected the profitability of the bank, and the bank would have faced regulatory action from RBI also. He's talking about HDIL. Further, this would have created reputation risk for the bank. He goes on to say, as the HDIL group had a good record of clearing their dues with certain delays, we continue to report all the accounts as standard accounts. Yeah, Hemendra, I just want you to, comment on the mystery that is Mr. Joy Thomas. And I'm just going to pull up his visuals as well, because this gentleman we've been hearing a lot from, which is rare to hear so much. And in so much detail from the MD of a bank which is in the middle of a scam. He's pretty much confessed to hiding the true facts. Why would he do that? Why would he write to the RBI? Why would he hold a press conference?
Absolutely.
What is the mystery of Joy Thomas? Hemendra Hazari, how do you understand that? Did he not realize what was going on?
No, obviously all of them realize what is going on. So this is essentially, cronyism which is going on, where the bank deliberately decided to take a call of lending that amount to HDIL for whatever reason. Now this is completely against all kind of banking prudent norms. So their accounts were totally fraudulent. And this is what I have been saying for a long time, that this is a small bank. I have been exposing most of the large private sector banks and their great celebrated CEOs, that you cannot trust the accounts, you cannot trust the auditors, even the big four. So, to me it has not come as that great a shock, because this is a small bank with some unknown auditor. When the big four auditors are being implicated by RBI investigation and one has been barred, now what do you expect the smaller people to do? The smaller ones are doing exactly the same thing, only here there was far less scrutiny by the market because it is a cooperative bank. But essentially it is a tale of complicity and totally fraudulent accounts. And we see this time and time again. Even in Altico, before defaulted, if you looked at the accounts, you couldn't make out. Everything looked extremely rosy. So today you cannot trust the accounts. And this is what I say, and I keep harping on this. You must always question the senior management, but sadly nobody does it. Everybody wants to be in bed with the senior management. may it be the business media or the analyst community.
True.
You know, nobody wants to question them because they fear there will be a loss of corporate ad revenue or there will be lack of corporate access. But today everybody is in bed with them. Only when things blow up, you all start pointing fingers at someone else. Nobody points the finger at themselves and their community of what they were doing at that moment in time.
Yeah. You know, I understand what you're saying, Hemendra, and I know that this has been a long-standing, lament of yours as far as the media is concerned. I take that point. But I also want to get a view on whether it's that scary out there. I think we have to be extremely responsible with what we say on this show today. Because the credibility of, what we say is very key.
Sadly, what do we see?
One minute. You are saying, Hemendra, that you see worse in larger banks today, and I've got Maithili back, I've got a line back, I'm going to go to her and then I'm going to open up the debate. If you want to come and indicate, I'll come to you. Maithili, today a lot of people watching this are now wondering a couple of things. They now know, because there's been so much publicity about this, that their deposits are insured only up to 1 lakh rupees. Over and above that, it's, good luck. You assume that if your money is in a public sector bank, that the government has some kind of a responsibility, moral, even if it is, to make sure that your money doesn't go bust. Do you think that there is a systemic rot now which people should be worried about?
No, I don't think there is a systemic rot. Not only because PMC Bank is a very small bank, relatively speaking, so there is no systemic risk, but also because their RBI has various other alternatives by which to ensure that the bank does not go down. You can have mergers, you can have amalgamations, because in fact, you go back to the time somewhere in the 1990s, when Indian Bank, which is a nationalized bank, their net worth was negative. That means the bank did not have enough assets to pay all its depositors. But because it is a government-owned bank, people had confidence in the bank that it would not lose their money, and so it continued to operate. And meanwhile, remedial measures were taken to turn the bank around, and the bank did turn around. So I think even in this case, had the RBI been a little less trigger happy, yes, there were clear signs of collusion between the top management, between the auditors, and many questions need to be asked, and also of the regulator. But I think all hope is not lost. I think depositors will require some patience, and the RBI must complete whatever inquiry it has as quickly as possible so that we know what the true state of affairs is. The longer there is this uncertainty and fear, the greater will be the distress of the depositors. So I do not think all hope is lost. Certainly there is no systemic crisis, because as I said, particularly in the case of the nationalized sector, you are completely, the backing of the government is unquestioned, even if you're not 100% owned, you're majority owned by the bank. So you are found as a sovereign. So I think it's important to send the signal that depositors' money is safe and there is no systemic risk as of now. But that does not mean you don't need to get into action. You do need to get into action and ensure what was the level of collusion of the top management. How did they lend so much money to one particular group? How did they violate the group exposures? How come nobody, including the RBI auditors, how come nobody found this out? So a number of questions need to be asked, and this should be taken as an opportunity to clean up the banking system, particularly cooperative banks, which because of their political nexus are in a much worse shape.
But is it just cooperative banks? We saw prompt corrective action being slapped on Lakshmi Vilas Bank over the weekend. We saw what has happened to NBFC stocks today. Some of it because of PMC, some of it because of Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Yes, Mr. Balakrishnan, you've been wanting to come in for a while. Yes, please go ahead.
See, I'll tell you why I am using these harsh words. Let me tell you, see, if it is a small amount of, misrepresentation or whatever, then I would say that it is they have skipped something or whatever it is. But such a huge amount at every stage. Now, we should also understand that this has cropped up right from the stage of the auditor of the company who is supposed to send the statement to the Reserve Bank of India on an annual basis. Now, apart from that, Reserve Bank also deputes their representative for the audit every quarter, and 6 monthly they are supposed to come and audit the books of accounts of the bank. Now, apart from this, the directors who are sitting there, they are also held responsible. They are supposed to be signing the accounts and they are going to send it. Now, for so many years, if they have been, hiding something, that means there is something more to it. My point what I am making is, Is management not responsible? Is directors not responsible? Directors are taking sitting fees and expenses for them for the meeting when they come, and at the same time auditors also have to report. But in this case RBI, they have come and inspected the books. Did they not find? If you go through the past, about first week of September, HDIL had defaulted on the repayment of a loan of 100 crores to the Bank of India, and they had given on a personal guarantee, they had given this 100 crores to PMC Bank, had given 100 crores to HDIL. Now you tell me, who on earth, which bank on earth will give such a big amount on personal guarantee when they have already so much of a big exposure?
Yeah, because
now is RBI not a controlling authority in this?
You realize why when you read Mr. Joy Thomas's letter about how the Diwan family and HDIL was pretty much the only customer of this bank for the longest time. They pretty much ran the bank like their piggy bank.
Yeah.
And this was going on for a while.
Yeah, but RBI did not find out all these things.
Okay, let me come on to the
RBI
role
did
of
not
RBI.
find out all these things for so many years. I am surprised.
Let's scrutinize the role of the RBI. And
it is.
Okay, I just want to refer back, Tamal, I just want to refer back to the Punjab National Bank case. It's not that long ago. And we remember even then, there were questions about what happened to the entire internal checks and balance and sort of surveillance system within the RBI. Have no lessons been learnt?
Yeah.
No, there's a slightly different case because let's not compare with Punjab National, because that was a completely RBI domain. There is the blame game. There's no question of any blame game. RBI had to take the responsibility. Of course, there's a dual control because the government, the owner also has, it goes beyond ownership. It has certain areas and all, which the previous RBI governor also mentioned in certain ways. That's a fact. But here, slightly different case. Here, it's a sort of the dual control, in the sense the responsibility of the respective state government is the management in terms of the board, constitution, chairman, MD, so on and so forth, and RBI is inspection and supervision. And it seems that they hoodwink the RBI. Now, should RBI be hoodwinked? I am not in a position to say, but as I said, I would like to compare it with Satyam. For a consistent period of time, the promoter was taking the entire system for a ride. Here, Joy Thomas was probably thinking he was running a chocolate shop. He was not responsible for people's money. Lakhs and lakhs of people's hard-earned money they kept in the bank, and he was merely giving the money to only one entity. And he said that he was not he was not classifying this as a bad asset because that would have impacted the profitability.
Yeah,
so
and
now
the
all the profits, the so-called capital, the so-called net worth.
I beg to disagree. I beg to disagree with Tamal sir.
Nothing. Everything is fraudulent.
Okay. One minute, so then I'm coming.
Everything is the bank. If I agree with Joy Thomas, the bank fudged every number, and everything whatever could have gone wrong with this bank, that had gone wrong.
I'm not understanding what Mr. Joy Thomas's plan was.
It talks about criminal conspiracy.
Mr. Balakrishnan, come in. I was just saying I don't understand what Mr. Joy Thomas's plan was, because he's the one who's gone and written to the RBI, then he held a press conference and he admitted everything. So I'm not really sure what his plan was. Did he realize what he was doing? Yes, Mr. Balakrishnan.
See, I'll tell you, it is not only Joy Thomas. He is acting under somebody's instruction. Let me tell you that. Because in every bank, what is happening is, there is always a level of approval. Up to certain amount, one can approve. Above a certain amount, it has to go to the chairman. Above a certain amount, it has to go to the board. There is a step-by-step approval for each and every loan. Every decision is not taken by the MD. I am sorry, I don't agree to it, because Joy Thomas acts on behalf of the management, and management has instructed him to talk such and such a way, so that the bank's image is not tarnished. So it is not MD himself who is responsible. The whole management, directors, everybody is responsible in this, including the RBI, the auditor of the company. Everybody should be pulled up and arrested immediately, along with the HDIL management.
Okay, I'm going to come to you, Hemendra. Before I come to you, there's just more revelations and just shocking revelations today. I'm looking at this letter from the PMC, from Joy Thomas, where he's actually detailing how they pulled off this fraud, and how they the stressed legacy accounts belonging to this group, which was HDIL, were over time replaced with dummy accounts to match the outstanding balances in the balance sheets. As the loans were mentioned as loans against deposit and were of low amounts, they were never checked by the RBI. So this is the extent. I know Tamal keeps saying this is like Satyam. In this sense it is, because even the Satyam scam came to the fore because the head of the company just detailed everything he did when it just got too much. What could the RBI have done differently? Because there is a view that initial stopping of withdrawal of deposits of 1,000 rupees caused panic, then you increase it to 10,000, now you're hoping it will increase to 1 lakh rupees. At that point, do you think there was any choice before the regulator apart from just shutting down all withdrawals effectively? Hemendra?
See, effectively this bank's future now is totally dependent on the future of HDIL. Because if HDIL sinks, then this bank has to sink. And I think what is very clear why the RBI took that decision, because it appears that the bank is insolvent, is completely insolvent, and therefore there's a very high probability that left on its own the depositors will lose a substantial amount of their deposits. I can only see a future for the depositors if the bank is merged with another bank, or HDIL for some miraculous reason turns around. Now the HDIL turning around in this type of economy, I don't think is going to happen. So therefore either the RBI now merges it with the other bank, or the depositors have to take substantial hits on their funds. And mind you, everyone today talks of privatization. This is an outstanding example how the private sector has operated. And again, I would like to remind your viewers that before bank nationalization happened in 1969, there were many private banks which were failing in India precisely because of these reasons. Today, the life insurance companies in India are also operating like this, and nobody is hauling them up. Nobody wants to call it when things are going good. Only when things suddenly blow up, then we all start doing our post-mortem analysis. And this is essentially the problem. But nobody is saying now how bad the private sector is in mismanagement. And let me again tell you, this was exactly the reason why bank nationalization took place. Because this is the way the private sector banks were operating. They were taking funds from the public and channelizing them to very selective industrial houses. And that is why we had bank nationalization. But today everybody wants to criticize bank nationalization.
I'm just going to open up that point for
they're
debate.
Forgetting the complete mismanagement of the private sector.
Post-bank nationalization, it isn't as if public sector banks have covered themselves with glory with the way that their books are. So it's not been a direct antidote to corruption. Corruption and mismanagement has existed in both situations. Maithili, you want to come in on that point?
Please look at the kind of agrarian lending that has taken place. Please look at the kind of small farmers that got funding during nationalization. The private sector did not get.
I don't know why we've turned this into a private versus public debate, because that's not the debate at all. But I just want Maithili to come in on the point that you were making. Yes, Maithili.
No, Hemendra, I wouldn't agree with Hemendra at all. In that sense, it is not as if nationalized banks' systems are necessarily any better. You can have fraud, you can have collusion anywhere. But I would distinguish between what happened in Punjab National Bank and PMC. And here I would differ from Tamal, because what happened in Punjab National Bank was a clear case of fraud by some particular officials. Whereas in the case of PMC, there was collusion right through. At the top management level, at the board of directors level, the very fact that you had a chairman who had a clear conflict of interest, and there was also negligence on the part of the RBI. I would certainly say there was negligence. I would not say collusion on the part of RBI, but at the top management level, at the board of directors level, there was certainly collusion. So it is quite different from Punjab National Bank. And I would not agree, again, I repeat with Hemendra, that everything is hunky-dory with nationalized banks and things are not so. In the case of private sector banks, there is clearly no answer to effective regulation and supervision, along with ensuring that auditors also are brought to book. I think this is where we always fail, because the balance sheet of banks just cannot be relied on, not just banks, even of companies. So I think a great deal of cleanup has to be done, and unfortunately the depositors are at the receiving end of all this.
And in the case of the PMC bank, looking at the situation of the banking sector right now, I think the last thing we need is for this to go on and on for such a long time. I'm going to come to you for the last word, Mr. Balakrishnan, but before that, let me come to Tamal. We've talked about maybe a larger bank taking this over and giving some relief. Do you think they will have to press the pedal on this? Because right now, you cannot really afford bank depositors to start feeling insecure about their money in, you know, maybe smaller establishments and have money migrating from there to bigger banks. You cannot really afford that kind of an upset in the financial sector as it stands today. So do you think there will be cognizance of that, and these depositors should be made good of their losses sooner than later? Tamal, that's
You're
for you.
asking me?
Yeah, that's for Tamal.
Yeah, for me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. No, you know, theoretically merger is a solution, but we need to see, you know, had it been a commercial, traditional commercial bank, since liberalization, since 1991, not a single bank has been allowed to fail. So RBI always, when it finds that there is a problem, like Global Trust is a case in point, there is a problem, it just, you know, puts a moratorium on the bank, a similar thing what it has done to PMC as on the similar line, and then it plays the role of a matchmaker and it makes sure that this bank is taken over by someone else. If I am not mistaken, I think Bank of Baroda has taken over at least, if not one cooperative banks in the recent past. So there have been cases that have happened, but there have been cases also the cooperative banks have gone for liquidation. So it all depends on how much assets does it have, all the physical assets and other things, you know, if you calculate, I think that's what the administrator is doing. But because it's a state subject also, as I say, what Hajar Hemendra was saying, I don't exactly agree with him, because this PMC is not a proxy for private sector. Cooperative sector is a kind of different animal. Normally the cooperative banks are a cesspool of, you know, political activities. Many of them are run by different kind of politicians of different hues and different colors and all. And since elections round the corner, and this bank is present in 7 states, including in a large way Maharashtra, and we are looking for a Maharashtra elections and all. So I would like to believe there will be sincere efforts both by the, you know, the regulator and probably also on the state, on the part of the state government, so on and so forth, to find an amicable solution. I can clearly see that 10,000 cap being lifted to a little higher, maybe 1 lakh, maybe a little more than that, to cover as many depositors as possible, maybe 70-80%. But beyond that, unless you find a real match, how do you go for a merger? That's the question. Ideally, it should, and because of the political, you know, elections round the corner, I'm sure there will be every effort to do this. But will they be able to do this?
Well, let's hope. You know, politics is often blamed for the mess in cooperative banks. Let's hope this time round politics pushes towards some kind of a solution. Last word to you, Mr. Balakrishnan. I'm short of time, so I, request you to keep it brief.
See. I'll tell you, see, when this government took over, they revived 23 cooperative banks which were politically involved, you know, cooperative banks, by infusing 2,375 crores in 2015. So I don't see why there is no reason why they can do this for this bank, you know. They don't have to merge, they have to infuse certain funds which they can do it, because in UP there have been several cooperative banks they have revived in 2015 by infusing such a big amount. So why can't they do for PMC Bank? And if they want to do, they can do it only before elections. You know, after elections, we all will be forgotten.
You know, I understand the plea, but it's a tricky one, Mr. Balakrishnan, because there is such a thing as moral hazard. If you set a precedent of a big company looting a bank and the government then paying the tab, which is basically exchequer money, I don't know how that will work beyond a point. But I understand your pain, and of all of the PMC depositors this evening. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the show. When we come back, we're talking about something that is very important and deserves to be on prime time news. It's in Patna today, it was in Pune last week, it was in Mumbai a few months ago, it was in Guwahati before that. We know climate change is coming, it's going to rain heavier and harder, but why are our cities so unprepared? I'm coming back with 2 excellent speakers on this. Sunita Narayanan and Professor Gupta from the Delhi School of Economics are joining me after the show.